Hello, this is Professor Brown, and now we're going to review some basic aseptic techniques. Basically, we're going to be transferring bacteria from one culture tube to another without introducing any contamination of any kind. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to need our Bunsen burner, which we're going to be using repeatedly. And we actually have two instruments to do our aseptic transfers. One is what you'll be using on most occasions. It's called the inoculating loop. And the other is called your inoculating needle. Most of the time you'll use your inoculating loop, but we'll have one occasion today where we're going to use the inoculating needle. So let's start with the inoculating loop. Now whenever you use this, you always want to sterilize it by placing it in the flame. Now notice I'm placing it in the flame and right on top of the inner cone of the flame. That's where it's hottest. And I'm starting from the base of the inoculating loop wire and gradually moving towards the tip. This is important. This technique is important because you want to make sure that if there's any live bacteria on the end of that loop, you want to heat that end gradually. If you heat it too fast, for example, by putting the loop end directly into the flame, you can get microscopic aerosols that might contain live bacteria, which you could breathe, and you certainly don't want to do that. So always flame it from the base towards the tip. So now this is sterile, and what I want to do first of all is demonstrate how to transfer bacteria from a solid medium. So I have some E. coli in this, what's called an auger slant. This is solid medium. I'm going to transfer some E. coli from this solid medium to a tube containing some sterile liquid medium we call nutrient broth. And I want to do this in such a fashion that we don't contaminate the original culture and we don't introduce anything else but the E. coli into the new culture tube. So whenever you open and close a culture tube, you always give it a brief flame at the mouth of the tube. And then my sterile loop still might be a little hot, so it's a good idea to touch the auger next to the bacterial growth and then just scrape off the smallest visible amounts of bacteria from the surface of the auger slant. Flame the mouth of the tube. Now I can set this back in the rack. And now I'm going to transfer the bacteria on the end of this loop into the nutrient broth in this tube here. Now this is sterile. I want to flame the mouth of the tube. And then insert the loop with the bacteria into the liquid and kind of agitate it a little bit and give it a twirl. You just want to get bacteria off of that loop and into the nutrient broth. Sometimes you might see a little flake come off or something, which is good, but if not, you shouldn't worry about it. Bacteria will come off of that loop, even if you can't see it. Now I'm going to flame the mouth of the tube, and I'm going to place the cap on loosely. If I screw it all the way tight, you've cut off access to any of the air outside, so it's an enclosed chamber and there's no gas exchange going on. So you don't want to leave it so loose that the cap can fall off, but about halfway. So there's a little play, but it's not going to fall off, but it's loose enough that air can go in and out of the tube. And then you're ready to incubate that tube and let the bacteria grow. And the last thing you want to do, of course, is to sterilize your loop. And now we know there's bacteria on the end of this loop. So be very careful to flame from the base moving towards the tip of the loop. Okay, and now our loop is sterile again and we're ready to use it for our next transfer. Now for the next transfer, I'm going to take some of our E. coli and I'm going to transfer it to another auger slant. So this right here is a sterile auger slant. And this is the same auger slant with an E. coli culture growing on the surface. So I'm going to flame the mouth of the tube. And I'm going to sterilize this again. It's been sitting around for about a minute or so. And it's pretty hot, so just to make sure it's cool enough, I'm going to touch it on the auger. And that'll make sure it's cool enough. And now, again, get the tiniest visible amount of bacteria. Flame the loop, the tube. Set that aside. And now take our sterile nutrient auger slants, flame it, and hold it so that the auger slant surface is up. And then there's two ways you can do this. I'll show you both ways. You can either just gently touch on the surface and just drag it straight up and draw a line more or less. Or, here's the other method you can use. You can do a fishtail. Gently touch it on the auger surface and then do a little zigzag as you pull it up. And then that's it. And again, keep the cap a little bit loose, and that's ready to incubate. And of course, finish off by flaming your inoculating loop from the base towards the tip. And by the way, which kind of streak you use on your auger slant, whether it's a straight line like this, or whether you do a zigzag or a fishtail inoculation, depends on the purpose you want to inoculate for. So sometimes you want to draw a straight line, other times a fishtail is appropriate. One thing I'd like to point out, as you notice as I did all these inoculations, I did not set the cap down on the tube. So if you can manage that, it's best to hold on to the cap without setting it on a surface, because otherwise you could contaminate the cap, which could in turn contaminate the tube you put it back onto.